30 seconds used. Minutes used. Two minutes and 30 seconds used.
This is the last picture.
Ready? Alright. Eating GM food is like playing genetic roulette. You don't know what's going to happen. And that's exactly what is wrong with the negative team's counter plan. There really is no risk assessment and there are no standards when it comes to the safety of GM foods. And a lot of the solvency argumentation has gone dropped by the negative team. So we're going to look at this through two voting issues. First of all, counterplan solvency / human health, what we're looking at with life and our human health. And second of all, those are the disadvantages. We'll see that in the end, an affirmative plan has solvency for human health. However, we do not have any of the disadvantages. Within the negative counterplan, you won't protect human health in any way. Before I move on to that, I'd like to point out the topicality is jobs. We are talking about environmental policy. Now, let's go to the first voting issue, that of the counterplan solvency and that of human health. Now, all of my partner's argumentation under here was essentially dropped. First of all, that of vagueness. There are no standards currently in the status quo to protect our health from GM foods. My partner gave you the example of L-tryptophan. That could currently pass through current standards in the FDA, the standards that the negative team will be using. That harmful substance can be brought into our country again. And that's what an affirmative ballot will prevent. A negative team's counterplan won't prevent that. Second of all is that of risk assessment, how it's virtually impossible to assess the risk. This was, again, not addressed by the negative team. Now, when you talk about their criteria and that of the precautionary principle, I'm going to get into that further under the disadvantages, but I'd like to get this counterplan solvency, this first voting issue of human health out of the way, and that an affirmative ballot will protect human health because we ban the GM foods. A negative ballot will provide something that the status quo is really already having, standards that aren't specific, standards that are vague, standards that don't keep unsafe foods out of our system. And that's what we're talking about here. Now let's move on to the disadvantages and talking about choice. Now, Amy talked a lot about how we have a choice to eat fatty foods, and I completely agree. I have a choice to eat whatever I want. However, when it comes to GM foods and cross-pollination, people can't choose whether or not they're eating GM foods. Now, sure, you can label it, but like my partner read, and I'd like to point this out, talking about transgenic and cisgenic, my partner read evidence talking about how virtually it is impossible for farmers to grow an entirely pure crop. And all of this evidence was talking about genetically modified crops in comparison to conventional or organic crops. So when it comes to choice, we have a choice to eat GM or non-GM. But right now in the status quo, we can go for the organic section. We can choose a non-GM food. However, it still is not pure. It's still not genetically modified. It's because of the cross-pollination. So when the issue of the cross-pollination, that of choice, we see that the cross-pollination is still there. And the evidence that my partner read talking about the 0% threshold was unaddressed by the negative team. Now let's go through each disadvantage individually. The first disadvantage was that of nanny state. They're restricting our freedom. I have a few responses to this. First of all, again, freedom of choice. Right now, U.S. citizens don't have the freedom to choose between genetically modified and non-genetically modified due to cross-pollination. Second of all, it's an unavoidable danger. Things like drunk driving will be banned because people can't avoid a drunk driver on the road. It poses a danger to them. When it comes to genetically modified foods, people can't avoid which food they're going to eat, and the foods pose a danger to them. We see the health risk is there. My third response to this is it really contradicts a precautionary principle mindset. They say we can't restrict freedom, let them eat what they want. It's their choice. However, a precautionary principle would take the steps to prevent people from eating harmful substances by making regulations on that and not just letting them have free willy and going to whatever they want. So we see this disadvantage really isn't a voting issue. The second disadvantage out of pesticide use, he said GM crops help reduce pesticides. I'd like to point you back to the Interpress service in our 1EC where it says that GM, genetically modified foods introduced in crops aim at making them resistant to pests or weed killing, but not to increase yields. That is a purpose. However, in our impact of this, it says that the consistent finding from independent research and on-farm surveys since 1999 is that GM crops have failed to deliver the promised benefits of significantly increasing yields or reducing herbicide and pesticide use. So this disadvantage really is a wash. GM foods haven't lived up to their potential. Now the third disadvantage, that of we're reducing benefits for the world. I have a couple of responses to this, talking about the starving nations. My first response is turning this. Currently, if you vote for the affirmative team, you're actually going to provide as much or more food than the status quo is currently providing, because GM foods are not living up to their potential, as I already said. The Independent Science Panel said in 2003 that, quote, there is no longer any doubt that GM crops are not needed to feed the world, and that hunger is caused by poverty and inequality, and not by inadequate production of food. According to estimates by the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, there is enough food produced to feed everyone using only conventional crops, and that will remain the case for at least 25 years and probably far in the future. So right now we have enough food. My second response is talking about India. When you look at Punepa Hongdong, she says that Indian agricultural scientists showed that 71% of the farmers who grew BT cotton suffered losses and only 29% made some profit. In the end, GM foods will protect our health, and a negative counterplan will fail to do so.